Hi, my name is Jojo. I am the host of BOP Talk. This is a safe space for us to discuss the internal and social struggles that we are all facing today. I am super excited to present to you guys today's participants, as well as the topic for this conversation. Let's get it. Let's go. Okay, so we are going to start this conversation. And I want us to all kind of start by just kind of introducing ourselves and just saying our name and what we do, just so we have a basic understanding of who we're talking to. And I'll start with you, Osman.
So everyone, my name is Osman. I'm a data engineer, I'm an artist, I'm so many different things. Yes. For work, I'm a data engineer.
Thank you, Osman.
I'm Alicia. I'm an upcoming chef, and yeah, that's me right now. Beautiful.
I'm Alexander. I'm a tattoo artist and designer, and I love doing some poetry.
I'm Jemima. I'm a writer and an educator.
I'm Nancy. I work in tech sales. Well, previously worked in tech sales, and I'm also a realtor.
Hi, I'm James. I'm a web designer by day, brand designer by night, and I like having conversations.
Beautiful. Okay, so everyone here signed up for today's topic, and I'll just go ahead and let the world know what our topic is. So today we are going to be talking about, speaking from the topic of older, maybe not wiser. What do you think we all could learn from each other? So that's just going to be our umbrella for today. Okay. The first question, or the first thing I kind of want us to talk about. So how would you guys personally define wisdom, and what qualities do you think you would associate a wise person with?
I feel like can you say that question one more time?
For sure. For sure.
It was loaded.
For sure. All right. So it's, how do you personally define wisdom, and what qualities do you associate with a wise person?
For me, the definition of wisdom is someone who is able to distill the essence of life through their lens, and through their experiences. And I feel like the qualities of a wise person comes from having a lot of experiences. I feel like a lot of people discount people who are younger because they don't have, quote unquote, the time to have a lot of experiences, but we already know, either by knowing someone who's been through a lot at such a young age, or us ourselves have been through a lot at a young age, that time is very relative,
Right.
And so a lot can happen to someone that can teach them a lot in such a short period of time. And even for those who have lived a long life, they might not have learned real lessons or takeaways from the long life they've lived, So wisdom really comes from how can, what values, what is truly important to, what I tell my son often is, you don't lose when you lose when you don't learn from an experience, So that's what I'm saying, you have to be able to know how to win even when you're losing by taking those lessons as you're losing, because we actually learn more when we lose,
Yeah. Beautiful. Anybody else?
I agree. I would say, for me, the definition of wise is, taking your life experiences, taking your failures, and turning them into lessons. And for me, I would define a wise person as somebody who, like both of y'all said, you take your life experiences, you take, your L's, and you keep going, and you apply it to life, and you use that to, create better experiences for yourself. Everybody's gonna go through failure, everyone's gonna take L's, but a lot of people just sit there. But a wise person is gonna say, okay, this happened, I'm so glad I learned from XYZ, and I'm gonna apply it to this next stage of life.
I was about to say, to add on to that, I feel like a quality I think a wise person has is patience. You have to be patient in those experiences. I agree with you. Like, in order for you to be wise or gain wisdom, I believe you do have to go through something. I think it's in that experience that you learn a lot about yourself and learn a lot about the world. Like, that's how we acquire knowledge as we grow up. You know, you're not the same person you were when you were 2 years old, only because you went through a lot of things and learned a lot. But in order to, you know when you're 2, you're probably going to be 4 and you're probably going to be 8, but it's different when you're talking about, being maybe unemployed for a long time, and it's like that patience, like learning to be patient during that time, and knowing that that's something that is going to bring you wisdom, because a lot of us like to rush through things, and I feel like you're missing a lot when you rush through life, and that's something that I'm trying to learn myself. Because I'm a very I need to get it now. Give it to me now. And then you end up missing the lesson. And so that is a lesson that I'm learning right now. It's just relax. Like, take your time and understand what's actually what's actually going on, and process it. I think we're scared of processes. I'm scared of processes. But yeah. So you know something?
To piggyback on your point of being in the process and learning through the process and not rushing the process. I feel like we are in an age where we synthesize growth to match our, how quickly we want things. Whether it's with the food we grow, whether it's with, we just synthesize things to be like, oh, okay, yeah, we genetically altered it so it can grow faster, so, but we do that in our natural lives, right? We have dating apps to speed up the whole dating process of meeting someone and getting to know them. We already have all the questions we want to ask in the beginning on those bios, So truly, being a student of the process, and being able to be not just patient, but just teachable while you feel like you're losing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just I kind of went through it today, bills are hitting. All of them at the same time. It's this is getting shut off, this one's getting shut off, oh crap, and I was like, why haven't I gotten a new job yet? Why has it taken, I was truly mad, God, why? What's taking you so long? I've been in this process, I've put in my 5 years of this job. It's usually 2 years at every job at tech, but it's just what am I missing? I guess the new question for me is now, what am I missing? What haven't I learned that's not letting me go to the next step, in the next process? What lessons am I still yet to learn that I can graduate to the next stage, And just being able to, humble yourself, be able to okay, what else do I need to learn before I'm ready for what do you have for me? What's next?
That's beautiful. Maybe we will answer that question later, actually, throughout this conversation. So to move on to the next conversation, our next question. So what, in your opinion, differentiates wisdom from intelligence or knowledge?
For me, I would say wisdom comes from life experiences. You can be intelligent, but you may not be wise because you may not have experienced certain things that have humbled you or taught you about life or maybe changed your mindset. So
Yeah.
I think grace, having grace with whatever you're being taught or whatever you're supposed to learn in that moment, or in the period, the period you're learning. Because I feel like anybody can learn something, but if you give yourself grace throughout the process of whatever you're going through, and then give other people grace throughout the process that they're going through, to me, somebody can be intelligent but not be wise if they're not being graceful with somebody else with the information that they have. So I feel like one big lesson that I had to learn is that you can't you can't help people grow. They grow in their own time frame, and like you can tell somebody, but it's on them to hear it. It's on them like to actually hear it and like embrace it and apply it to their lives. So it's like with you having this information, are you being graceful with yourself and like how you're choosing to learn it or how you're choosing to navigate it? And are you giving other people grace as they navigate their life and what they're learning, Because I think intelligence is like, intelligence is like a good thing, but I think wisdom is like amazing. Like, oh, you're wise beyond your years. I think, okay, I'm graceful with that intelligence or with that with whatever I'm learning from.
I was about to say that there in the Bible, I think it's even like knowledge is the beginning of wisdom. You know, it starts there. It starts there, but it's not the end. And sorry, what were you saying? I
wanted to build on her point by saying I think that the major difference between both is application. You know, knowledge, intelligence, you can be book smart, but in Nigeria where I'm from, there's something called street smart. So you may have gone to the best schools, British owned, British curriculum, but then when you're on the road, busy streets, you bring out your phone and you are busy doing this. Somebody who is street smart doesn't do that. That's wisdom. You don't do that. I don't know about here, but you don't do that. You don't do that on the road. So that's the wisdom application to your situations now. Knowledge, you will have the know-how, but then wisdom is just not there. You don't know how to apply it to yourself now. So I feel like that's the difference between both.
Okay. So to change this around a little bit, what are some instances in your life where you have realized age doesn't actually correlate with wisdom?
Here we go. Now we're diving in.
Okay.
Who would love to go? Who's first?
I would say, okay, so I don't have like a specific scenario or situation, but like I would say you see that with a lot of the people who are much older than us. You know what I mean? But like you look at their mindset and the way they carry themselves, and it's like, you're way older than me, but we think so different. You know what I mean? And that's what goes to show, like, just because that person is older than you, they're not necessarily wiser than you.
Anybody else?
I hate to dominate the conversation. I really do. I just have a lot to say. Particularly about the subject, like I mentioned, being the youngest of four. I always looked up to my older siblings. The one right before the one, like my immediate senior. There was a point where we would always get into arguments, and I saw like whenever we got into arguments, it was just rage that took over. Just anger. There was no logic. There was none. And it became a point where I was just like, I'm not going to engage anymore. And I just kind of like, there'd be moments where I just kind of like, almost like out of body experience, I just watched the situation unfold. And I'm just like, wow, you have no control, right? And for me to be the younger one, realizing that, and I remember like being younger, there was just like a realization of like, wow, I have to learn how to deal with people like you, I think that was my first realization that just because you're older than me doesn't mean you're wiser than me. And then it went further, me being older now, whenever I speak with my parents, I'm a parent now, so our parenting styles are super different, but we're in the same household, we're all dealing with the same child. So it's very interesting dealing with trying to parent two separate ways the same person, and for them, the goal is do what I asked you to do. The goal isn't to learn why I'm asking you to do it. It's they want you to know, but they're not teaching you wisdom, they're teaching you knowledge. Right? Yeah. And I feel like we often can switch the two. And so usually my goal is, sometimes I get caught up in my own emotions and myself too. But sometimes I realize I'm like, okay, my goal is this. Let me make sure I focus on this. And I'm like, oh, you're carving them too much. You're being too, and this whole new soft parenting thing, they hate it. They hate that I try and, like, you're doing too much talking. I mean, how else is it's just, for them, there's a simple solution to this, this problem. And I'm like, that would help him understand why I'm asking him to do this, what he gains from doing this, and understanding that we're on the same side, So it's just like, that wisdom came from me watching them teach me, and seeing where they fell short. And I'm not going to blame them anymore, but because I have, I don't have the luxury of blaming them anymore. I have someone who I have to learn the right way of doing it, or the best way I know how. Because I know I'm going to screw up some ways, and they're going to have to deal with some traumas for me. But I know that from the knowledge that I have, now it's time for me to apply it. How can I apply it, the best way? So, I mean, I feel like we see it in each generation, and I think that's good in a way, because we're learning from the mistakes of our predecessors. But I don't know. It's yet to be seen.
No, I mean, I definitely do think, I think when I wrote this question, I was thinking about my parents.
Yeah.
And my aunts and my uncles, and just the older generation. Honestly, there used to be a time where I was just upset with just their mindset, and I'm like, why are you the way you are? Like, why do you think the way you do? And everyone's parents, I think most people's parents here are Nigerian or African of some sort, so they have similar mindsets, and they may have grown up in a similar time frame and background. And I think that has a lot to do with how they think. You have to think about how their parents taught them. And I'm sure their goal was to make sure that they were the best parents to us, and that they could learn what they could from their parents. I think that's just a reflection, like you're saying, each generation we get a little bit better. I do believe we do get a little bit better, but it is a reflection of the things we've learned from our parents. And it does go a lot to say, we may have problems with how our parents raised us or reared us, but think about how their parents reared them, and how big of a jump that may have been for them, to say, I'm not going to do what my mom and my dad did, what our grandparents did in raising them. And then there was to add on to you saying they just wanted us to learn the quickest way, kind of when they're rearing their kids, is just do what I said because I said to do it, and just by force, you must just by force, you must learn. I don't even want you to learn. Just do what I said.
Yeah.
And that's maybe that is a reflection of just how they were brought up. I mean, I don't think what African parent sat down and said, "Well, baby, I want you to go take out the trash because the trash is gonna stink, and then there's gonna be flies, and there's come on, get out the door." There's no. I don't need to hear any of that. No talking.
Yeah.
But that's how that was handed to them. And so, obviously, we are growing up in a very different environment than they are. Now, I mean, there's still the same mindset. I mean, I think it's actually even evolving, back in Nigeria or in anywhere else. It's there is a little bit of a rebellion of I'm not gonna do what you told me to do because it don't make sense. And I think, obviously with social media and just everyone seeing how other people grow up, it's well, that don't make sense. What you told me, what I've been learning for the rest of the entirety of my life does not make sense. Because I watched this in, I don't know, Russia or wherever, and they're not doing that, and it makes sense. I understand what they're saying. So there is a beauty with the spread of technology, but I mean, there's a hindrance. But in any case, we are evolving. We should give them a little bit of grace, just a bit of grace, because they were not given any knowledge, or they maybe were not given any opportunity to gain wisdom in their time. It's just due, and they didn't have the luxury of saying, "Well, I don't think that's correct." It's you're gonna do it. That's how they've always been trained, and I think having the opportunity to be born here or be here and have a different mindset is a luxury. you are exposed to different people that have different mindsets. They're not. They're stuck around the same people that have the same conversations every single day. And we're expecting them to understand us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in a way, we do have to give them a bit of grace. I mean, and they're learning from us as well, little by little. But, you know, I don't know. Does anyone else have anything to add to that segment?
I would like to say that I think that it's not always the same thing as what we think, because wisdom is relative. So older doesn't necessarily mean wiser. It may mean more enlightened, but it may not mean wiser, because I think wisdom is relative or subjective. I don't know how I want to put it per time. What you've experienced, how you've been able to apply to your life. So what we've experienced in our age group and in our modern day is not the same thing as what our parents experienced.
Yeah.
So it will kind of influence the way that we behave. Some of them, you ask them, okay, why don't you want me to have a tattoo?
Very good
It's
question.
just don't do it. Why can't I have a nose piercing? People will think, why? I'm asking you, men, why? Why are you calling people? You know, so they don't. It's just the way things have been for them. So it has kind of conditioned them and formed their own wisdom. So it's relative to them. For example, I'm teaching now, and to be frank, like I said when I was doing that piece on that day, it was a surprise when I got into these schools and I saw these children. I'm like, this way you would do it here. So I had to start relearning that you have to tell a child, please stand up. Sit down. Thank you. Please take off your hood. Please. I'm like, because I'm used to, you know what to do. Once a teacher comes in, you get your act right. But now I'm learning. So you see, we can't even just blame our parents.
That's fair.
We are also learning. Because in the world of these ones coming up, I was walking through the hallway today and I was looking at this 13-year-old, 14-year-old, and I was feeling very old. I was feeling so old. I was like, wow. So to them now, their world is different from mine.
Yeah.
So I would think I'm wise and try to impress, my wisdom upon them, but the way they are thinking is different. So I think wisdom is relative, and so it doesn't really mean older, wiser. It just means, what you are right now, that's your wisdom. How much of your knowledge right now you can apply, that's your own wisdom. It doesn't necessarily mean the person older than you has more wisdom than you.
Okay. So to piggyback off of that question, how do you think younger generations benefit from the wisdom of older individuals and vice versa? So what do you think each could learn from each other? I think we could learn a little bit about patience from them. And that's just, I think I learned that in not a negative way, but they're so used to the older people in my life are just used to like kind of waiting things out, and I think that just irritated me a bit because I'm just like, I don't know, what are you waiting? Like, what are you waiting? Who are you waiting for? Like, what tomorrow? Like, tomorrow will come. Like, what does that even mean? Tomorrow.
The sun will come tomorrow. How are you sure it won't rain tomorrow though?
So I definitely feel that's like, there are times I'm going through things in my life, I talk to my parents and they're like, just keep going, it's going to happen. I'm like, no, I have faith, but like, this waiting period is kind of like, they're like, don't worry, walk out. I'm like, bro, like, how can you just, he's beating me up, like, I'm feeling so drained. My dad told me to just slow down. I'm like, slow down for a little bit. Like, if I know, like, part of having faith is just hoping it's going to, believing it's going to work out, and just waiting it out. I'm like, so I don't have the patience to wait it out. But my parents always every time we talk, it's the same thing. It's just take a breath, relax, breathe. So yeah, we can definitely learn a lot about patience from them. And one thing I learned from us is how to be more open to different ways of thinking. I've learned a lot of people, like my parents. Sometimes my parents see some things and I'm like, are you hearing this? They have like a very close-minded way of thinking, and it's so strange. So this is one example. I was back in Nigeria for a break, and I was at church. In my church, like most of us, we should grow together. After church, someone I know, his mom came up to me and she's like, "What's wrong with your hair?" So everyone was like, "I don't comb my hair. I just leave it as it is." And my parents some days have issues that they don't fight anybody. Yeah, but this woman does, like, my friend's mom. She's like, "What's wrong with your hair?" Like, what do you mean? She's like, are you not going to cuss her? You look so responsible and that. And I'm just like, okay. And then she's like, if I didn't know your parents, I wouldn't think you were a human being. And I was just like, no, that's not right. I was just like, it's not worth it, man. It's like, happy Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm like, how can something as simple as my hair make you say something like, say, if you didn't know my parents, they wouldn't think I was like a human being. Like, it's crazy. And I've heard like worse things from like my dad's friends.
Yeah.
One of my dad's friends said, like, some stupid example was like, if you came to me, if I didn't know your dad, I wouldn't give you a job. And I'm like, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to work here. That's not the plan. He's like, how do you get a job? I'm like, I have a job, like, with my hair. You go with your hair, like, yeah. You know, like, it's little things. Like, I'm just like, are you like hearing what you're so pressed about?
Yeah.
Like, other things to be pressed about. This is what you want to be pressed about.
It's hair.
Yeah.
It's hair. Legit hair. Not if you're living, breathing.
I think respect, based off of what you said, it kind of reminded me of respect. I personally think that, like, younger people can learn a lot from older people about respect to a certain extent. I feel like if you respect yourself, right off the bat, you should respect other people. Now, if they disrespect you, then you should, like, you know, move accordingly. Right. But I feel like people don't think that, like younger people don't think that people deserve respect just right off the bat and they come off being disrespectful. And one thing that comes to my mind is when I was in South Africa and I went to the host family that I was staying in. When I went to their church, they asked me to cover the front part of my hair, and I had piercings, and I had like a nose piercing and my tongue pierced. And my host mom, she was like, is there a way for you to take your piercings out? Or she was like, can you take your piercings out? We're gonna go to church. I was like, I can't take my piercings out, but I'll change it to a clear color, a clear one, so it's not as noticeable. And I don't mind, you know, putting a scarf over my head, just, you know, because I feel like that's me respecting the space that I'm in, the space I'm about to go in, and that does nothing to my, like, who I am as a person. It's not disrespecting me and who I am because you asked me to take out my piercings or you know, asked me to put on this scarf. And I feel like people see that as disrespectful when it should be seen as like you should go into this space being respectful of the space. Like it blows my mind when people are not respectful of like religious or spiritual places because that's not the background that they're in. I'm like, then don't be in that space. Right. Don't be in that space if you're not going to be fully respectful of that space because it does nothing to you to like it does nothing to who you are to like put on a scarf or like change your piercing to like a clear one so it's not as noticeable. Like, so that's what I think. I would say what they could learn from the younger generation is, you know, like you said, being more open-minded and just being able to like think for yourself. I feel like the older generation, it's really based on, well, this is how it's done, and you know, if you do this, people will laugh at you, people will talk about you, and I feel like our generation is more free, more like, okay, like, this is who I am, like, I don't care if people talk about me, you know, and I've seen that especially with Nigerian parents. You know, there's a lot of different situations where I'm telling my parents about something, and they're like, well, why did you tell this person this, or, you know, why did you say so much. Like, don't you know people are gonna laugh at you? Don't you know people are gonna talk about you behind your back? And I'm like, okay, you know, but like, I don't know. I feel like they're very pressed on, you know, saving face, and you see that when it comes to religion, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to, you know, going to certain events, knowing that they don't even like that person.
Yeah.
Inviting everybody to everything.
Right. Like,
I want a peaceful gathering.
I don't know. There was something I was about to say. Maybe I'll open up a little bit more towards the end, but like very specific to that topic. But as far as what we could learn from them, I would say hard work. You know, like our generation is a
We know it.
yes, and it's like I don't know how we became so lazy. I don't know if it's technology, but it's like if you look at the way they used to get up and work diligently for everything they have, and we're just like entitled, like we feel so entitled to certain things. So I definitely feel like that's what we could take from them.
It's funny you say hard work because I probably need to start putting that in. But no, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, I feel like the kind of points, one, I think I recognize there were things I could learn from my parents, but I always looked and harped on the things that they could learn from me because they refused to learn things from me, you know, that I didn't want to acknowledge what I've learned from them. And I think, like you said, hard work, because man, my mom, we all know that, we all have those moms who's just like, you do that day after day after day for how many years? And then for the parents who have that husband who's still in the house, you know, you put up with that for how many years? you know, like, and it's like, man, the long suffering that you endured, you know, but you're still here, you're still pulling through, and you're still showing up for everybody like you are. Right. Like, there's something to be said about that, you know, because I know we make fun and like everything like that, but it's like any little thing, oh my God, my anxiety's flaring up. Which I'm not saying, it's a real thing, you know, I promise you. But I feel like sometimes you use it as a crutch as well, of like, you know, like, okay, let me just power through. But it's just like there's a balance. You got to know yourself, you know, and that comes down to wisdom. Like, are you being burnt out, or are you using this as a crutch? Are you being honest with yourself, you know? So it's just like, I feel like for our parents, they never had any of those excuses available to them. You know, even if they actually probably were going through depression, even though they're actually probably burnt out from the work they're doing, they're like, oh, everyone's doing this, so I have to do this. You know, kind of back to the point. Like, my parents were so upset. My parents could never, you know, I'd shame my whole family if I ever came home failing, you know. So it's just like, I feel like there has to be a balance of this new age of do what your heart wants and do whatever, you know, whatever makes you happy, to do what you have to do because you know you have to do it. Because there's something that you want on the other side of that. You know, and I tell this to Zephy all the time, do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. I'm not telling you not to do what you want to do, but there are certain things you have to do. You know, and I feel like we forget there are certain things we have to do before we get to the things that we want to do. And then it goes to the point of us being lazy. We're like, oh, I want that, but you know, we have to do this and this.
We don't want to work for it.
We don't want to work for it, and then now we're in.
Space. I was about to say, to piggyback, because I think that's a thing that I've learned from my parents. My parents are extremely hardworking. Individually, both of them have stories that are insane, and I don't think I could have lived not even a year of their life. To be very frank. All that being said, there's a lesson I've learned in just like watching how they do things. I feel like they've learned through suffering, and unfortunately I feel like they may believe that that's the only way. And indirectly, I've learned that obviously that's not the only way. And it's hard to watch because you know that that's what they're conditioned to, is just hard things. Life has always been hard, so it's like this is how my life is, and in a way they kind of accept that route. Not saying that they accept it. It's just like it's familiar, so it's like this is life. I'm just gonna keep on pushing. But indirectly, I've kind of learned where to say enough is enough. Like I don't have to die on this hill. I'm not going to die on this hill. I love you. Whatever it is, paying for siblings back home that should be up. I don't know, like working, that got their own families. I'm speaking to you.
The house that's the house that they're always building.
The house that they've been building since. For someone to live in and eat their money, and it's like obviously they don't see my mom slaving at work to provide for that. But it's also like, Mama, leave those people.
Right.
Like that's not your
Cross.
God did not tell, that is not your cross. That is not your cross. And I'll be dads. I'm sorry, I'm cussing, but I'm not. It's not me you're gonna find. I promise. But that's the thing. They've assumed the worries and the problems of others because of culture, because that's what their parents did and their parents did, and it's just like I think that's one of the differences about this generation is like, nah, fam, like I'm not doing that, and they're upset, they're vexed, they're vexed. Get somebody else to do it. Literally, like I'm being frank, go find somebody else. But I think like that's the thing that's vexing them, or like even like maybe be the main frustration at least for them right now, because it's like I did it for my parents and my parents did it, their parents did it for me, like whatever, and it's like it's your turn, like it's your turn to assume the cross, and I'm like, oh, so see, that's the problem though. I'm not gonna. You got me messed up, and like, but again, it's that in a way their own sense of entitlement to like for me to struggle.
This is my time to
relax,
and now it's your time to struggle.
But and like even then, it's like you learn a lot about that. Like it's like it must suck if you put yourself in your parents' shoes to be like I slaved for these people. When is it my time? But indirectly, again, like I'm saying, it's like I wish that's a thing that they could learn from us. Is like when to just let it. I don't have to.
Your time has been.
Well, your time is now, and like it's like you don't wait until you're nearly dead to start living your life. And who's to say that God? You don't know. You just don't know. And so, like, yes, endurance is a thing I have learned from my parents. They are the strongest people I know. They've been through a lot. They've learned a lot of life lessons the hard way. But I've learned by watching them, I don't have to learn those lessons the hard way. So, that's my. Everybody cool on it? Okay. All right. So, as we talk about that, what's a hard life lesson that you have experienced that has significantly changed or shaped your perspective and has contributed to your bank of wisdom?
Okay, so for me, I actually got married pretty early. I got married when I was 24, and I did it because that's what my family wanted for me. That's what his family wanted for him. And, Nigerian parents like to do that, arrange, like, So I feel like before we even got married, there were signs of abuse. And I feel like I stayed in it for the wrong reasons. I stayed in it because one, like I said, that's what my family wanted for me. And two, like, I just didn't know how to face that disappointing everyone, like, this marriage isn't happening anymore, So I stayed and put up with that for like almost 3 years. And once I got out of it, I feel like I became a completely different person. Like, I have become so wise because of that experience. And I feel like that goes back to, like, the first question you asked, like, your life experiences will really shape you, if you're willing to take the lessons from it. And I would say, like, one of the biggest lessons I took from that marriage is just like, from now on, I'm going to love myself. I'm going to be confident in myself. I'm going to think for myself, and I'm going to always put myself first and do what's best for me. And I feel like I didn't used to think that way. I used to want to do things to impress people or to please people, or, well, you know, this is going to make me look good, or, you know, raise my social status. And I feel like I've become so humble since then. I just think in a completely different way. And though that was the most painful experience I've ever gone through in my life, I'm thankful for it. Now I can actually say I'm thankful for it, because I'm like, I would not be who I was today had I not gone through that.
All right, thank you. My hard lesson. I learned to not take the time you have with people for granted, because you don't know. So my background is nursing, so like I worked in emergency medicine, and so naturally I've been used to like death and like just kind of being the bearer of bad news, or in whatever case. And so my brother actually but it'll be a year next month that he actually passed away. And he was 13, and he was struggling. And after when he passed, I went through this stage where I was just like kind of just reevaluating my time with him, how I spent my time with him, and what I knew about him, just like reevaluating that time. And I realized when I was going through our texts, he wanted to spend a lot of time with me, and I kept blowing him off. Or kept saying like, "Oh, Junior, I'll see you next week. I'll see you next week. I'll see you next week." There was literally, I think, like maybe 4 or 5 texts of just, "I'll see you next week. I'll see you next week. I'll see you next week." Thinking that he would be there forever. Like, you don't expect a 13-year-old to go away. And so I was just like, "Yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you later." Even the day that he passed, I was texting him about getting Christmas gifts, like, "Jimmy, what do you want for Christmas?" And he was telling me, like, "Oh, this, that, and the other, but can you come over this weekend?" And I was like, "I have something I'm doing." I put a lot of things ahead of him, like the relationship I was in at the time, my friends, going out, like, because he was always gonna be there. Like, I mean, and it's like, you're my sibling, I can see you whenever. And he had asked, like, "Oh, can we hang out this weekend?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'll probably be doing something." Well, that weekend did not come, and I replay that. There's a bit of guilt that I have for that, because I don't know. Maybe I could have said something. Maybe I could have done something. Maybe things would be different. But I ended up getting a call not even a couple hours later, and go to the hospital, and what's done is done. And it's just like, man, that's it. Just like that, someone's gone, and they're out of your life, and you don't have time. And so that's something that I have, that's the toughest lesson anybody should never learn. You have people in your lives right now that I feel like we all do, that we put on the back burner, or that we take for granted, or that we don't say what we need to, or speak when. That's another part of the lesson. It's just like, say all the things. You don't know when that's going to be the last time. Be as open as you can, because you don't know if that's going to be the last time. I had so many regrets, so many unsaid things, so many things. But I learned as I go throughout this life that any person that I encounter, I need to take that relationship or that person very seriously. And so that has been something that has been on my heart, even starting this. That's what triggered his passing is actually what brought this up. This is the result of this, because I don't think we take it seriously enough, the people that are in our lives and are struggling. And I'll see you next week, I'll see you tomorrow, whatever. And God forbid that day doesn't come. And so I feel like we should learn to start, one, living in the now, and saying all the things that you need to say to people, being vocal about that, being loving, being available. I think we've become so unavailable nowadays. I'm working, I'm this, I'm that, and like, I don't have kids yet, but like, that's a thing that that I'm taking, like, whenever I do have kids, I refuse to say, I'm sorry, I'm working. I can't be there, I won't be there, I won't whatever. So yeah, that is a hard lesson I've learned in this life, is sometimes you don't have that second chance, and you don't have the luxury of time. So yeah, sorry, that was heavy. Anybody else? Sorry. But yeah, does anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I think when I hear about your brother, we discuss it sometimes, and like, I think the first person I always think about is my son. I always expect him to be that, he has one life ahead of him, not big. And oftentimes I do put a lot of things ahead. Oh, I have to work for you. I have to do this for you. And sometimes we forget that the best thing you can do for them is just be there. And the most valuable thing, as much money can buy, is still paying our time.
Yep.
And people buy your time all the time.
Yep.
Your employers buy your time for $27, and we're happy about it.
That's what you're worth.
An hour out of the 24 is worth $27 in my case. And I think that's grossly underpaid for it. Even $50 an hour is grossly underpaid for. And I feel like if we're able to put things a little more into perspective of, what do you truly value, and are you putting your time into those things that you truly value? I think in the beginning of this year, like mid-year, I think there was a time where I read this book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it was talking about your roles and goals and your values. You have to be value driven. If you're driven by anything else, whether it's religion, whether anything else, you are going to fall short. And it was talking about how we have to be able to truly write out and understand, like, very clearly say, this is my values, and your time should also reflect what you say your values are. Because we say our values are one thing, right? And then our time reflects a different thing because of things calling our attention.
Right.
Oh, you have to do this, we need you to do. Somebody else could do it. If you weren't here, in this very moment, somebody else would do it.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't need to get done, and it won't get done. Very simply, But I feel like, as much as we say our parents are the ones who are very, impressed by the people around them, like, oh, you have to do this, we have to do this to show face. We do it as well. It's just in a different way. It's communicated differently. Oh, we have to post in a certain way. We have to make 2 posts every, week. Whatever. All these rules that we made up, and we're still following them. Oh, I have to make this certain amount because I have to do this. I have to do this by 20. I have to do this by 30. I have to get a family by 25, or it's not gonna happen. All those rules that we decided are rules because we are taking on values that have been placed upon us without us knowing.
Kind of like our parents.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we do not take account and look at history, we're doomed to repeat it, you know. And I, like you said, I want to be the parent who's able to show up, you know, just to be there. And I've seen countless videos and I've seen it, you know, firsthand of the difference of just being there, being in the audience, you know, at your kids play, showing up for lunch, you know, that my son asks me to do that all the time now. I used to never be able to do that. My mom worked in my school and she would never be there for lunch.
Sure.
You know, but she was working, you know?
She was working.
That's wild.
I was like really funny.
She's in the school, but can't be at school.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to me, you know? But at the same time, we value you, so that's why we're working so hard. And I understand. But we don't understand that the true value isn't in the money we trade for our time. It's in the time we spend and how we spend it. But you know, like, and I feel like we have to take stock of what do we truly value. And I have like a running list of like, these are the things I value and the goals that are to reflect those values. And I haven't been able to check it lately because all these other things, you know, oh, we need you to do this, you know, bills are due, this, you know, and everything. But I'm like, if I can't look at that list, I know I've lost my confidence, you know. I don't know. I just feel like it's just something we have to take in as a practice, like just taking stock of what our values are and our is the way we spend our time actually reflecting them.
I feel like that's the difference between intelligence and wisdom, is that understanding that difference. And I feel like all wisdom stems from acceptance. I feel like you have to learn how to accept the circumstances to truly be wise. And with acceptance, it's like, it's so easy to live in the story of how it could have been or how it should have been. And we're so caught up in kind of getting distracted. We don't really have conversations with ourselves into a system that was built in place. And yeah, I truly feel like having discussions like this is how you get more people feeling wise. But then sticking with it too. You know, you can feel wise for a moment. It can be fleeting. It could be enlightening, man. Like all day, man. Like I have this exercise that I do with people, like to kind of get them thinking about the best version of themselves and how they can do that.
Share that.
And then
Share that. I loved it, so share that.
See, I think this right here is a real life example of intelligence versus wisdom, because like I thought about the system, I felt very wise when I thought about the system, but implementing myself and staying with it, like man, I'm going intelligence all the way, and like it's not, it doesn't line up all the time. It's basically like you gotta imagine your best life, all right? It's always going to change because you're always going to change as a person. Like, change is inevitable. It's good. Like that's one of the best things about us as humanity. We're so adaptable. Like we're so change driven. So imagine that, and then you have to imagine the best version of you living that life. It can't be your best life if it's not the best of you living it. So really, like think about like what does that look like? What does that person look like? What are they doing? Like what are the values behind that person? And then you've got to describe that person in 3 words. And when you can break life down like that, you can like think about, like that's a big concept, like the best version of you and all that. When you can simplify it in like 3 words, it's like when you consciously do that, like you're slowly, your subconscious like looking at you like, oh man, like I should, you know, this seems important. Maybe I should focus on this a little bit more. And when your subconscious picks up on it, like you embody that, and then that's who you become. Like, but it's not in like the good moments. Like, everyone would have good moments, but when you're feeling down, when you're feeling lonely, sad, you feel betrayed, you feel isolated, you feel like angry. Like you have to remember those 3 words, because when you do those in those tough moments, when your values get tested, that's who you become, who you are, who you want to be. But then like to know that and still do otherwise, like that's intelligence, man. Like wisdom is such a hard, fleeting thing, man, because you have to accept the circumstances, and not all of us are willing to. Like, We don't talk about all the craziness going on in the world. We don't talk about the shootings. We don't talk about like coming up with the system. We're just like, okay, what's the new update on Instagram? Like, how often should we be posting? What's that new Netflix show? You know, that's what we do, and it's a weird way to live.
It's numbing.
It's numbing.
Not that different from our parents, to be honest with you.
Not at all.
Yeah.
We just have to
It's just the
like-
same people recycling the same things.
Yeah.
Different ways.
Have you ever been inspired by someone whose wisdom helped you navigate a challenging situation? What made them wise in your eyes?
Okay, so I have something. It's not that big, but it was really big to me in the moment. When I was finishing up my degree, I wanted to jump right in to get my PhD, and my plan was to move to the next state and just get right in it, because I felt like that's what I needed to do. It's like I graduated with 2 degrees at 20, and I had 3 degrees at 20. So it's like, oh, let me go get my PhD. So then by that time I had like whatever house. But my professor, who I really looked up to, he was like a big part of one of my majors, and I was talking to him, and I was like trying to really gauge what his opinion would be on like my decision. And I was like, I'm thinking about taking a year off just so I can get prepared for grad school, blah blah blah. He was like, you're taking a year off because you're exhausted. And he was like, and there's nothing wrong with that. And he was like, just if that's your reason, then don't let other people's opinion affect the real reason that you're not getting into it. And I was just like, the way he said that, I was like, you do not have to read me like this. You're my professor, stay there. But it was really important to me that he said that, and I'm still working on that message, because I feel like it is a constant thing to be like, oh, I don't need to worry about what other people are thinking about my decisions. I need to make a decision on what's best for me. Like, how am I going to feel about the decision that I made, knowing that if I would have went to the school, there was a high chance that I would have been burnt out, to the point where I'm not going to, I'm in the middle of my degree and I'm not going to finish. Right. So I would say that was a lesson. He was like, I know you came to me hoping that I was going to give you a certain answer or validate what you're feeling or whatever you're going through, but I need you to basically be honest with yourself and take whatever that your truth is and run with it. Don't try to hear other people's truth and stuff like that and make it apply to your life. So that would be the
I used to be the most anxious person that I knew. I'd walk in Walmart, hear people laughing, and I think they'd be laughing about me. And it wasn't until I heard this one line from a friend that I needed to learn how to detach my sense of self from my affections, just because it's affecting me as a reflection of me. It just made me think about all the times I had a fleeting thought and I just ran with that thought instead of just parking it for a second, hey man, you can have a thought. You're an artist. You can have so many thoughts. It doesn't mean that's you. And then just going back onto that. Sometimes that's a lesson that always stayed with me.
I think one lesson. I think it was it brought peace to me. Was one thing that my mom said, and now I say it very often: "What is for you will not pass you by." And it was just
there's that patience again.
You know,
It's them and their parents.
you know, and it's just it was just okay. We're very much in this I guess new age of we also have to get after it, get after it. It's not gonna come to you, but it's just there is something to be said about what is in the right time when you are ready. In the way I took it was do what you need to do, because everything happens at the right time for the right reasons. For you when you are ready, And I think for a long time I was chasing a clock that was invisible. And I think that's the reason why I push it so hard is like, I always had like this, women have like a biological clock. I had a clock because my son was getting older. You know, I was like, okay, he's getting 6, 7, 8, he's gonna be 10 years older than his siblings. Like, I need to find a wife, I need to have a good job in order to support that wife. Now I have to have a house in order to get that. Now, you know, like, that list kept on getting longer. And like, and then whenever my mom said that, it was just like, really, what on that list actually has a timetable, like a true timetable to it?
Right.
You know, the only thing that really had a timetable was the time I had to spend with them. You know, like
Yeah.
that's the only thing that really had a timetable. And I was just like, man, like, for me to be able to let go of all those expectations, all those, you know, things that I placed on myself that I didn't need to pick up, you know. So it was freeing. And it was one of the wisest things I've heard.
All right, well, I'm going to move on to this next question. What role does self-reflection play in the journey towards wisdom? Okay. I was about to say, I think that's one of the things not a lot of people nowadays lack, but I feel like there's a good amount of people that lack some self-reflection, and I think that that's the main barrier to keeping them from getting to this place of wisdom. I think that is, it's like, I can know something, but not actually, like you said, apply it, or like, how does this affect me, or how do I play the role in it? I think a lot of people are scared to turn the mirror on themselves and be like, dang, I really don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, until we can sit there and be like, I don't know. And that's a lesson I have learned. It's like, do not think that you are smart. Do not think this life will teach you that you're not. Like, you know, like, you need to be able to accept that. Like, I don't know why we see that as like it's an ego thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's made me be able to talk with people. It's a humbling experience because it's like, there's nothing that you can take and use against me that will shame me, because I'm like, I've already kind of way shamed myself. Like, I've already looked at it and said like, well, I know I'm not the best at this, so you're not gonna get me for that. You're not gonna get me for that. Like, you're not gonna get me for that. But the thing that makes it even better is when I'm like, I see that and I want to change that, and I make that an actual goal. I feel like a lot of people will even get as far as like get to the step where it's like, okay, I see that this thing is a messed up thing that I do. And like, I'm stuck in my ways. It is what it is. And I'm like, okay, so that's why we don't grow.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that a bunch of people go through things, and when it comes to the other side, it's like, well, I went through it. It is what it is. I'm like, you need that self-reflection because it feeds your self-awareness.
It does.
And without that self-awareness, you cannot know how big a part you play in things happening to you.
Yes.
You're just going to keep going through things like going through things. Eventually, even if it takes you like a while, eventually you should be, as a person, you're like, okay.
Let's chase
it. So yeah, no, self-reflection is very important. But like, a lot of people don't want to look anyways.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'd rather blame anybody else than I blame, oh, this is my problem. Or like, this year I've had to learn that, oh, okay, this year.
Yeah.
And it's like, not just acknowledging, it's like, what do you do next?
Yeah.
If you go into acknowledge and go back and say thing, it's pointless. So what do you acknowledge it for?
Exactly.
So yeah, acknowledge it is, what you do with this is very, very important. But I always stress, your low times to just kind of reflect, just kind of like, think about how what you're going through is affecting you. Think about the part you played, so think about what you can change. So yeah, self-reflection is more important than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
What was the question again?
So, what role does self-reflection play in the journey towards wisdom?
I feel like you can't even get there unless you self-reflect. Like, you're gonna go through something and there's a reason why you're going through it. And if you don't pause and think for a second and say, okay, what could I have done differently? Or moving forward, you know, what did I learn from what just happened? Like, if you don't take that step, there is no wisdom, there is no moving forward, and I guarantee you're gonna go through the same thing again.
Cycles.
I think self-reflection is really important, but I feel like people get so caught up in like
self-criticism that they can't get to the reflection part of it. And that's what I feel like is really, like when we were talking about intelligence versus wisdom, is like I feel like people can get so stuck in like their triggers and like not, or like their trauma and like not moving or learning from it, instead of like, or not moving from it, they just sit in it and just reflect. I feel like that's a lesson that I'm like in the process of learning now, is like not being so critical of myself that I can't reflect on what's actually going, like what's actually happening, or what I can learn from, or what I can learn from it. And I lost my train of thought because you said something and it hit really. I'm trying to think. Like when you were saying, you said something about when you ask yourself, like if you're in a space and you have to be like, but basically I was saying like when you have a thought and it's like, oh, I did something, are you giving yourself grace to sit in the bad decision or like the bad experience that you're in and be like, it's okay that I am not doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing. That's okay. How can I be better for it and stuff like that? So I feel like getting to the next step, because I feel like I'm very critical of myself in my head. Like I'm very critical. I'm like my worst enemy. And I feel like if you constantly stay in that space, you're not growing. And I feel like a lot of people confuse elders being wise with them just having experience and not growing from that experience, because they just take whatever happened to them and they're just like stuck in, like you said, like stuck in their ways and stuff like that. And so I feel like self-criticism is, a lot of people I feel like have been dealing with that, and they make it seem like they're reflecting, but you're not. And I have to be honest with myself, like I'm not reflecting because I know I'm not growing from this spot. I keep being in this space. Why am I still in this space? And one thing that I'm learning right now is like, okay, I've been in this space like 2-3 times. What haven't I learned the first 2 times that keep getting me in this same space? And let me tell you, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard, especially like having like just different life moments around you, and then still trying to like self-reflect and be like better than what you want, like what you were at one point, but saying that it's okay to be in the space that I'm in right now. I'm okay that I'm overly critical at myself right now. That's okay. But that's not where you want to end up. You don't want this to be the end goal. So that's okay to be right here, but where are you trying to get to?
Yeah, I kind of envision that like skipping a stone. Like the water is like where you currently are, like over there is like where you want to go, and like when you get a stroke of inspiration, like you can skip, you can move a little bit forward, but then you sink back into who you are. You go like you can throw it a little bit further, but then you sink back, and like accepting that it's not gonna come to you all at once. That's like you being like, okay, it's cool to sit right here. I'm gonna tread the water for a little bit, but then I'm like to throw another stone. And just try to get there as best you can.
I like that.
A little further.
I like skipping.
I would like to add to what she said about self-reflection. My cousin once said, if you don't learn a lesson that you're meant to learn, the same thing will come back in another way until you learn that lesson. And it was kind of, so to say, morbid to think about, because I'm like, that's wicked now. So the same thing that probably caused me trauma will keep coming back until I learn a lesson. Why don't you just give me the thing? Right now. Let me read it. But the thing is important because you have to learn. And so it still boils back to wisdom. If you don't learn by yourself, it may still just be that knowledge you're getting from somewhere else. So the wisdom, you don't really get it because you've not learned it by yourself. Sometimes even self-reflection may not even be on the, so to say, negative things. It may even be on the positive things. Like I have a very good example. While I was teaching back in Nigeria, something happened. Short form is children were coming, oh, my food got spoiled before lunchtime. My mom did not pack food for me. And me, the benevolent teacher, I'll be giving money. Oh, take, go and buy food. Take. Until the parents came. They were like, you're giving my child money. How do I know you're not a witch? I felt so bad that day. I was like, out of my good heart. I was trying to make sure your child doesn't starve. But I went home and I thought about it. I was like, fair. Because why are you giving a child food every day and you don't think to report to the authorities that, oh, please, can we contact this child's parents? Because, she's complaining of the same thing every day. So in my mind, I was thinking myself as their mother. I'm the mother of these children, but I'm not their mother. Yeah. So the thing is, I had to learn the wisdom to the extent that in this school I'm teaching now, a child gave me a birthday gift. I happened to mention, tomorrow is my birthday. He gave me a gift the next day, so I had to ask the supervisor, am I allowed to take this thing?
No, for real.
Because I learned, you don't just take things into it. And some people may have praised, no, we're being good, giving the child money, but that's not wisdom. So the self-reflection is, even in this thing that seems positive, is it really positive? What was your intent? Because there are so many things that have happened in the past. Now I would not try them again because I would think I was good then, but what I really think about them is I was trying to prove a point, which is not which is not so to say positive, but to you is positive. So self-reflection is what will make you be like, calm down, sit down with yourself. This thing you're doing, is it because you're trying to, so to say, heal your inner child? Is it because you're trying to prove a point? Is it because you're trying to show that you're good? So self-reflection is always important.
And I think it's also very important, as you're talking about like the inner child, that self-reflection is very important for us to sit down with ourselves and like, you start learning in the areas you're not healed in. There's a lot of things that we don't want to face because we feel like we don't have the emotional intelligence or the time or the patience. A lot of people are dealing with like really heavy things, and it takes a lot of energy to process, which I would completely acknowledge. It's not every day you can sit down and have self-reflection, because then I won't get up. I won't move. But I think it is a necessary point that everyone should make that time out for themselves to have that self-reflection, because what is going to end up happening is a whole bunch of unhealed people are going to go and tamper with another person and cause another person's trauma that they'll now inflict on another person. And that is, honestly, that's a chain reaction I'm seeing here, myself included. And that's not here, but what I'm saying, like just around in general. It's like, because we fail to sit down and be like, what? Why am I this daft? Like, what's going on? Like, why do I keep repeating the same thing? Is it out of comfortability? Is it because of whatever? Like, for me personally, I learned that I'm struggling with like an anxious attachment style, meaning that I can't be by myself, and it's like that is causing me to like, you hold on to things that you shouldn't hold on to, and it's hard to sit there and I'm very hypercritical of myself as well, so it's hard to sit down and. I mean, not even hard. I'm real good at that. Like, I'm actually real good.
It's easy.
It's so easy.
It's easy at this point.
It's so easy.
It's hard
like,
trying to change
I'm so good at telling myself the things that I'm not good at. Like, you're like, that's duh. Like, that's of course. Like, of course. You should have known that.
Yeah.
You should have whatever. But it's like taking the step to be like, okay, so great. We know what you did wrong. What's going on? Like, why do we keep replicating the same thing? And for me, it's like I'm trying to hide from the main issue here, which is that you're not healed in this way. And it's a hard thing to sit down and like be like, it's hard to say you're not healed, because like, again, everybody presents themselves like they're this perfect human being, or like they don't have issues, or they don't have struggles, or people think that you are a perfect individual and that you don't have struggles and you don't have issues. And so it's hard for you to like kind of detach yourself from the reality that you've already created for yourself, or the image that you've already created for yourself. Which is essentially why I say like, that's why Behind Our Portraits is what it is. It's called Behind Our Portraits. It's rip through your pretty picture and look at the dark, look at what's in your face. And so all that to say, that self-reflection is cute, but if you're not willing to sit there and look at the thing that is unhealed about yourself, that is the issue. That is, and it's actually quite plain. Like, I think you can sit there in your head and be like, yeah, I know that's what it is that I'm not healed from. but to sit down and it takes energy. Like we're not gonna be chap about it. It's hard. It's gonna take energy. It's not gonna be easy. But until you want to do the thing that is not easy, you will do the thing that is 10 times harder, which is repeating that cycle.
Right.
Repeating that cycle. So
That's
I
familiar.
yeah, but it's familiar, and that's the issue. So it's like dang, I saw like an image the other day where it's like someone that has been digging a trench. It's like you just get familiar and digging the trench, and then the man realizes he doesn't even have the tool anymore. He's just like walking in a circle, and it's like you at some point it becomes so familiar to you that you just this is it. Like you end up believing it in a way, somewhat like our parents. It's like. Or not even our parents, just people. Like you get stuck in a space and you're just like, this is all I know, so I'm going to continue to do it. And that is that attachment. You're attached to how you perform in those certain situations. So I think one of the things we can do is identify those things that trigger you, or like in that space, whatever you see the issue, take it a step back. Okay, what about this situation is familiar in other areas of my life? Why does it, let me see the pattern. So start looking for patterns in your life, whether it's relationships, whether it's people, whether it's your job, whether it's time you're not allocating. And then that's how you start. I think, like you're saying, like breaking things down into bits. That's the only way we're going to approach and fix a lot of these issues that we have. I think obviously any task is daunting. Like when you see a whole workload, like me coming back from this break to see all those emails. I just shut up. I don't have time for this. I don't have time.
But that's why I love like technology, like ChatGPT and stuff. It breaks down things so much for you. As long as you can give it the roadmap, you're like, hey, here's all this information. I will just type up a paragraph and then like condense this into something that makes sense. And it does. And like that's awesome. But like I don't think like on a biological level, our brains like when synapses and stuff are forming, that's limited. That's a limited amount of energy you'll have in your life. Like when you get older, you have less and less and less of that. So you get stuck in that circle, that trench. And it's so important to have moments like this where you're planting the seeds now, because there's some conversations I tried having with my dad. He sure doesn't even remember the things that I meant. Like I talked, like like his brain cannot remember, and that is scary. That's kind of like lost cause at that point. Like I can acknowledge that, accept that, get that closure, but like I now end up like that. I know my brain to like not be able to like process that. That's crazy. But like there's the fight or flight. Like that's what we do. Like that's what like a lot of Nigerians do. They fight because it took too long for them to grow, or they fight and be like, why was your hair like? You know, all the time, right? Like all the time. And I always knew I wanted long hair growing up. And then my dad's a barber. He would always be like you have a big head. You have big head.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
He's like you have to have short hair because and I'm like no. And then it wasn't until I got older, like, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm always gonna do it. 8 years later, I'm still doing it. Like I'm gonna have a bigger head. I don't mind.
But yeah, I think that's a deal. That's a deal. We get stuck in these little trenches, in these little places. It's easier. I think everything's overwhelming nowadays, honestly. But we have to learn to start breaking things down. And, like, that is gonna take work. It's gonna take energy, but we're so willing to give our energy to everything else except our own self-development, which is wild. And so that's a thing that you have to be intent about it. Like I'm really being intent about it. Like, I mean, even a lot of people are now in therapy. I think therapy is now becoming a trend. Because just so you can say I'm in therapy. But it's like, I'm in therapy and I'm hearing what she's saying. I'm like, this was great. Laptop closed. And then you don't go to the client. And I've paid somebody $100-something to tell me the thing I know about myself from the beginning, and I just don't want to apply it. And I think that's the thing. That's an issue.
In psychology,
well, I was just gonna say, like, some people are in therapy and they're not even honest with themselves or the therapist.
That's it.
And I think that boils down to some people find it very difficult to self-reflect. Some people, just for whatever it is, like, they don't have the ability to sit with themselves and be like, what is it about me that I need to fix or I need to work on? You know, I feel like, yes, self-reflection is very important, but there's a lot of people in this world who they don't have the capability. It's always the other person. And I feel like Yes, people can go to therapy. Yes, people can go through certain things. But if you're not willing to be honest, you're not gonna grow from that. You're not gonna learn from that situation.
Yeah. I think the only thing that they're missing to get that is that they never fully create, like, it's never fully formed a relationship with fear. We all have fear. We all have coping mechanisms. Some of them work, some of them don't. You have to fully court fear so you can live your best life. And that's difficult for a ton of people. Like, understanding how can I grow and constantly have that body. Like, yeah, it's a tool as well. It can be with you, it can help you grow as well. But that feeling, that sinking feeling, a lot of people, they just can't deal.
Yeah.
They can't.
Growing up from what you said, that whole like therapy as a trend thing. Last night, I actually had a conversation with my friends. I met someone and then she was talking about. I was like, I kept saying, oh, I'm busy, I have to do something. And then it was like, what's the thing? I said, oh, I have therapy to do. And then she's like, oh my God, you're in therapy. I love that. And I was like, why? I was like, why? Because I hear it a lot. So like, oh my God, this person's in therapy. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh my God. Do you know what's going on? Do you know if it's working or not? And then one of my friends who made a joke, he was like, I was starting therapy in January. And then they're like, he's coming up. But then somebody also asked me some weeks ago, she was like, she doesn't think, maybe she's not the right therapist, but she doesn't think it's working for her. She's like, how is it working for me? And I'm like, it's working for me because I don't want my money to waste. I'm so serious. Like, I'm not paying this money and giving this person this time.
I did not expect that.
No, I tell my therapist this thing every time, like, personal development aside, I don't want my money to waste. Like, I can use this money for something else. But I'm paying every week, so I have to get my money's worth. Like that's one of the main reasons why this thing is working, because the amount of money I pay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm like, don't let my money shouldn't waste. So that thing about like people, the whole new trend, like, I'm in therapy, I'm just go there, sit down for 1 hour, close the laptop, and say, say, oh, what do you do? I have therapy. Yeah, I'm working through some things. It's very, very serious. But the whole my money shouldn't wait, don't just do it because everyone's going to therapy.
Yeah.
Though that's like it's something that someone said before. Don't just do things because they say, okay, this is what people are doing now. If everyone around is going to therapy and you just okay, now I want to go to therapy, you're not ready for therapy, you're not ready to open up to the person, you're just there to say you're there. So you can tick that box. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be the person that be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you go to therapy. I love when people say that they're in therapy, especially like Black people, especially Black men. Like as a person who has a psychology degree, it is so important. I feel like there's such a stigma, especially for like Black men, that they can't open up to people or they're not able to. And I feel like with what you said about how come therapy is working for you and not for your friend, I feel like people give up really easily when it comes to therapy just because they're not used to it. Mm-hmm. But one thing like I always tell people is like therapy, that's a relationship that you have with this person. It's like finding a doctor, or having a relationship with somebody else. If you're not vibing with that person, you're not vibing with that person. You cannot vibe with your therapist, and that means you need to find the next person. And I feel like people just give up really easily when it comes to getting into that space. That it's like you don't give yourself a chance to actually grow from it. And then if therapy's not for you, therapy's not for you. You can be it get you a mentor, get you a life coach. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always have to be a licensed psychologist who can help you, with life. So.
And I think one thing I want to say about that, I think it comes down to the whole idea is peeling back layers, right? We're peeling back layers, and I was going to mention I feel like self-criticism is one layer that has to be peeled back, because we can sit there, okay, I recognize my issues, and I'm like, one thing I always tell Zephy is why are you? I ask him, why are you so self-critical? Because you're not actually getting to the root of the problem. You can say, oh, I'm bad at this, I'm bad at that. Okay, what particular thing are you bad at? Are you bad at the reading part of it? Are you bad at this part of it? You're not actually saying what you're bad at. You're not actually, looking at what's bad, and you're just saying it, and you're like sitting there, like, okay, I'm bad, I can't do it. And it frustrates me as a parent, but I'm like, there's one thing she told me the other time was like, just let him sit in it so he can get past it. But I feel like as adults, you know, we sit in it far too long, where we just like, we've dug that trench and we're still walking around in that trench, you know? So it's just like, we're trying to peel back layers, and sometimes it takes someone outside of the situation, because we can tell people about themselves easily. We can, you know, we know that person who has the best word to tell everybody, but never takes their own advice. We all know that person. And in some way, we are that person. In one level of our life or the other, we can break down everyone else's situation, but not ever look at our own, right? And it sometimes takes someone outside of the situation to peel back that layer of like, okay, let's take this a bit further. What really aren't you good at? What really is the real problem? Because from what I'm hearing, outside looking in, that's not the problem. You might want to look over here. This might be more of a problem, you know? And it's easier to see patterns when you're looking from a far view. And I think that's why therapy is so important. Because sometimes we're too close to the situation to even be able to recognize all these patterns that are around us. Yeah. We just see them as, you know, local landmarks. You know, we don't realize that this is something that we've passed already. You know, we're going in circles. But someone else can be like, you've done this before. We've had this conversation before. It wasn't about this, but it was about something else that was very similar to this. How are you going to do something differently? And I'm all for therapy, but simple conversations with friends who truly care about you.
Right.
Yep. Go along with it.
Better than therapy.
Yeah.
Better than therapy, because they know you. They know your situation. You don't have to explain it to them for the first hour, and then your time is up and come back next year.
Right.
You know, like, they know your situation, and they can be like, hey, from what I've been hearing, I suggest, if they truly care about you. You know?
Another thing, like, friends are like, they can care about you, but they might not be in the best place.
Yeah. And that's why it's like, do you have the right people around you?
Yeah. But even the right people go through things.
Or I was about to say, like, or like some cannabis and a journal. I'm just saying, you know, me and my subconscious, you know, just like.
One thing I will say about like the person not being the right person is James says a lot is like, I never want to not be able to take wisdom from somebody, like wisdom that I may need from somebody just because of who they are or the space that they're in. And it's like putting yourself in a space to hear whatever you need to hear from this situation, regardless of who's saying it and the intent in which they're saying it. Which sometimes it is important. Like obviously, don't have the wrong friends around you all the time. But like you said, people go through things, and like sometimes them going through that thing may not give them the right credibility in that moment, but you can still gain something from what they say.
Yeah. My therapist told me years and years ago, it was you have friends for a reason, friends for a season, and then friends for life. And like it just makes me think about that, though, just breaking it down and like trying to take and see what category which person you want, and just trying to take as much as you can from what interactions you have.
And there is some self-reflection as far as like knowing, like people just in general, like if you know you're not in the best space to give advice, either learn to get to that place for yourself, or you know, like, because it's just the same thing about like watching your parents do the same. They tell you to do this, tell you to do that, but I'm watching you make the mistake over and over and over again. So after some time, you will start to lose credibility. So it is, you know, I agree with Osmond, like people go through things. Not everyone is perfect. Doesn't mean that their advice isn't solid.
Yeah, that's right.
In the same breath though, if I'm watching you do the same thing over and over again, after a while, you don't even take your own advice. So, you know, like, I think that there is a thing to be said, you know, just be careful about who you surround yourself with. Because after a while, we don't think it's funny, we think we're not influenceable until it's like too late. You're kind of looking around
It's
like,
like,
dang,
I've been saying the
same thing. You know what I mean? But in any case, like that just, regardless of what anybody says to you, is like 2 cents. Literally, it's their 2 cents. What you do with that, personally, that's your business. So regardless of if you're the person giving advice or you're the person taking it, what is done with that advice is the most important part about this. And I hope that you end up being, and everyone ends up being, if the people you're surrounding yourself with or your friends you're with, you end up being that influence to change. Everyone should be growing here.
Yeah.
We're not perfect people. Like in this room right now, there could be a bunch of problems here, but being able to sit here and say like, I hear you, I understand you, like there's growth here. I think that's what is important.
Yeah.
People need to start having these conversations. They need to start being honest with themselves, honest with their friends or their people, whoever their people are. You know, not everyone has family they can rely on or whatever. So your friends do become a very important part of your life. But you have to, it's a relationship you have to nurture. It's not every day. You know, you talk with your people so that we can have, this should be replicated. I hope that, and this is, we're gonna end here, but this should be replicated. I hope everyone takes this in your own group, in your own home, in your own wherever, and replicate the energy here. Because this is what should be happening. I'm not here to beat you up. I'm not here to tell you you don't do this, do that, whatever. But it is a space for you to sit here and start thinking about things and want to change and want to be better. I think everybody wants to be a better version of themselves. Everyone wants to get to that place. It's hard. And I think it's easier in a weird way knowing that it's hard for you too. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel like I'm the black sheep out. But at the same time, don't keep company with the same people. You know, you're never gonna grow. So, in any case, I pray y'all take this, replicate it wherever you go. And this has been great. Y'all. I love this.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
this is
amazing.
real.
I was a little nervous, but this is nice. It's chilling, like,
I hope a lot more people are able to join this conversation, like join this space for real.
Yeah, you build it and they will come.
Yeah,
But it's one of those
exactly.
things, bro.
Let's be out there. It's like,
Yeah.
good job. Well, you've provided us some amazing food.
Yes.
Everybody-
She slaved away.
Slave.
No, I did.
Everybody, please grab yourself a plate. I know we stayed extremely late.
Yeah, my mom was already like, so how far?
So sorry.
I can't believe it's like past my bedtime.
Yeah. But it's
Real
okay.
quick, before everyone like breaks off, is there one thing you go gather up real quick?
Yeah.
You mind?
All
Alright, everyone put your right hand fingertips touch it.
Oh, we're touching tips.
Come on, Peace.
Yeah, yeah, touch tip with us.
Alright, and now throw your hands in. Alright, we're here in this moment, y'all.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's conversation. If you would like to participate in our next conversation, follow us on Instagram to sign up at behind_our_portraits. Also, subscribe and like our YouTube channel, Behind Our Portraits. I'll see you soon.